Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel, and here we go with Star-Lord from Avengers Infinity War. Now, before we begin though, please do hit the like, share, and subscribe button for more Hot Toys Marvel content in this channel. Now, without further ado, let's go ahead and begin with the box art. And so, first of all, we're greeted with the magnificent artwork of Star-Lord himself with the mask on. And I do like this display that they have here because while it may not be the full frame of Star-Lord himself from the film, it does resemble quite a bit of it. And on top of that, you still do have the Avengers A logo on the background, indicating that he is, of course, an Avenger. But overall, on the sides, you'll also notice that it does transition over as well. You do have the Star-Lord 1/6 collectible figure, MS 539, alongside with the Infinity Gauntlet. And something you'll start to notice is that the space / artwork on the background is circulated around the box, even on the back as well. And of course, we do have some Hot Toys information. If you do want to go ahead and read this, you can go ahead and just pause. Same thing to the side, we do have Star-Lord's infamous gun, one of his blades. And at the bottom, we do have the Avengers Infinity War logo, and on top of that, we even have it golded on the side. Alright, so with all that being said, I'm starting to get first good impressions with this, and let's go ahead and dive in to the accessories and then the figure. And there we have it, all the accessories out of the box. Now, let's begin with the head sculpt. As always, Hot Toys knows how to do their head sculpts, and this is an example of it. Now, Chris Pratt, we know he is perhaps one of the most well-known comedic characters in the MCU, but with Hot Toys here, they went out and did the best that they could to incarnate, to replicate that exact same seriousness of Chris Pratt. Now, I know right off the bat on several previous reviews of Star-Lord, people claim to say that this head sculpt does not quite hit the mark. And to be honest with you, in some angles, especially on the front that we see here, it takes a while to have that resemblance of Chris Pratt. But nevertheless, it does look fantastic. We have it here from all sides. And as you can tell, he does have an earpiece here on his right side of his ear. Overall, I do like the head sculpt. No complaints. So far, so good. Next up, we have here, which is by far my favorite sculpt so far, and that is Star-Lord with his mask on. And quite frankly, I'm going to use this to pose with my figure just because I like the well details that they have here. And again, you do have a little bit of the head on top, his hair that is. But throughout the entire sculpt, it looks fantastic. No issues. However, I do have to go ahead and say that you do have to be very careful here on the neck piece when you install this on your figure if you do plan to use it, just because it might actually damage the jacket. And that's something we're going to take a look at here in a bit. But I do want to go ahead and say that this is a great piece of a sculpt. And next, we do have this piece as well, which is actually his helmet, only disintegrating, of course, whenever he does plan to remove it. In the film, you might see throughout that whenever he's tired of using his mask or his helmet, it tends to go ahead and, of course, it'll dissolve. But in this case, Hot Toys try to resemble a little bit of that, which you can actually attach to the head sculpt here in the middle, but you do have to be very careful because of course you don't want to have any scratch marks on the head sculpt, and of course you don't want to break this as well. But overall it does look pretty fantastic to me. Next, we'll take a look here at the display. And again, one of the most common ones that Hot Toy uses throughout the Infinity War line. And you have this kind of hexagon display. Again, I'm a big fan of these. I know quite some that don't like them, but again, to their own taste. But the reason why I like these is because while it is small, it does provide enough space on my display as I go ahead and showcase these with the other Infinity War figures or Endgame or any other Marvel ones. Gives me enough space. But as you can see, it does have the space background on the side with the Avengers A logo and the Avengers Infinity War logo. Then you have Star-Lord's name printed here. Well, that's pretty much it to it. Next, we'll take a look here at the 7 interchangeable hands. We do have the fisted here, which is actually quite well detailed to it. You can see the veins run across it here, and that's amongst all the hands as well. And next, we'll take a look here at the weapon accessory, which although it seems only a few, is actually you can play a lot around with it. First, starting off with his gun blasters. I have to say they look well detailed. You have the silver / gray on around the whole blaster. And of course you have enough space to actually use the hands to place them in without damaging either the blaster or the hands itself. But overall I do like this, in which I'll actually go ahead and display on my figure. And next we do have the bubble effect. Although not quite necessarily a weapon, but although if you've seen the Infinity War movie, you know where this comes from, of course. When Star-Lord has Thanos on gunpoint, however, Thanos threatens him to shoot him, or at least shoot Gamora, in which, in the end, as Star-Lord pulls the trigger, out comes a bubble burst. And next, we do have this grenade here, or should I say bomb as well, in which we've seen him use this against Thanos. And although it is quite small, it looks well detailed. Again, Hot Toys knows how to do their accessories, and this is quite a good example of that. And next, we do have this small piece here. You can actually use this piece to attach it with what's the next accessory here, and that is. Next up, let's take a look here at this small triangular piece, in which most people don't know where this is from, and believe it or not, this is actually from the scene where both the Guardians meet the Avengers, which is Iron Man, Iron Spider, and Doctor Strange. And Star-Lord uses this to actually mobilize Iron Man. And although most people won't tend to use this unless you do have the Iron Man Mark 50, but nevertheless, it's actually a good piece if you do want to incarnate that scene. And next up, we do have this long piece of accessory where you can actually use against Thanos to replicate the scene where all the Avengers have Thanos in the middle dead on. But if you don't have it, then more than likely you won't be using this piece. I know I won't, but if you want to use it against any other figure, then by all means go for it. But this is something that I don't quite see myself using, so I'll leave it as that. And next up, we have what is by far one of my favorite accessories, and that is these Doctor Strange effects. The main use of these is to actually replicate the scene where Star-Lord is walking in the mid-air about to give Thanos the bomb attached to his back, but with the help of Doctor Strange. And so these effects right here are actually quite well detailed. And of course you can slide in his boot to actually fit in, to which you'll actually see a little bit later throughout the video. But I'll definitely be using this as to my display. Again, one of my favorite accessories. But amongst all the accessories, there is one that sticks out that isn't quite my taste of touch, and that is this right here. Now, it does come along with the figure, but what the main purpose behind this is to actually replicate the scene, of course, where Star-Lord's giving Thanos the middle finger. But in order to do this, you actually have to connect the pole there amongst this picture. And although it does look quite cool, but to me it's not something that I plan to be using. If anything, it doesn't really have much of a purpose. And of course, you really don't even have any of those fingers to actually make the scene out of it. But nevertheless, this actually isn't something that I will use. It's just there for show. But if it's what you're planning on using, by all means, go for it. And there we have it. Star-Lord himself, out of the box. Now, already at first impressions, I'm actually quite digging this look. While people do praise the Guardians Volume 2 of the Star-Lord figure, I must say the Infinity War version does at least attempt to be second place on it. But since I don't own the Guardians Volume 1 or 2, for this one I gotta say I'm actually quite content with what we have. But let's go ahead and dive straight into the figure. At first, of course, as we addressed it earlier, the head sculpt itself, on some angles, yes, it'll take a while for it to look just like Chris Pratt, but either way, it does look like a good head sculpt. Now, as far as that, the movement is actually quite good, although the ball joint is quite loose on mine, even though I've attached it in, but I'll let that pass. But as for the jacket itself, which is actually one of the most important parts of this figure, of course, Star-Lord has quite a remarkable look. But as far as for the jacket, this looks so clean, so crisp. As we take a look from the back as well, you do see this hard, quite purplish, but also reddish color. Don't know how to describe it. But either way, it looks quite good. Now, for those who are curious enough to see what is beneath the jacket, is just quite of a black shirt. Although I don't want to necessarily open it all the way up, but you can open it if that's what you want to do. But for me, I'll leave it as it is. As far as for that, we do see a much more lighter color on the pants itself. And we do see quite of a placeholders and a little bit more weapons added to it, which we'll dive in here just in a few. But the first one you can see is actually this right here, to which you can actually place his gun blasters. And also from the sides you can see more patterns on across his boot, to which I actually quite like. And of course you can see a little bit much more of his blasters that he uses to fly in the air, to which they're actually quite well detailed. And last but not least, his boots. Overall, I'm actually quite impressed with the figure. Now, it is to say though, it does have its marks. Now, I've heard that most of the time with figures like these, the jacket tends to crease in the future, or crust as well. And although the only way to have that is that if you're in an environment where there's a bunch of heat, or if you're not careful enough with your figures, then that tends to happen. But if it's surrounded in a cool setting area, then you should be good. But seeing that this is my first figure, I'm going to go ahead and assume that it's in its good hands. But let's go ahead and take a look at the articulation. As far as articulation goes, of course, the head goes from side to side without any worries. You can go from up this high and down this low. And next, we'll see the arms, of course. It'll go as far as this. And it could bend forward from as far as this. Next, we'll take a look at the torso. From side to side, it can move quite from there, and from front to back. Ooh. And then we'll take a look here at the bottom layer of the body, to where the knees can actually bend this far. Alongside, we do have ankle articulation as well. At least ankle swivet. Now, as far as articulation goes, I do have to address one thing that is very concerning, and that is the jacket. Of course, most people would go ahead and have Star-Lord pose in these dynamic poses, but in this case, the jacket itself, although it looks fantastic, you're going to have to be very careful of not having to bend and leaving it there for such a long period of time. And that is because the fabric of the jacket itself is not the most durable by all means. But if you do plan to go ahead and pose him, again, I always recommend to at least have him back in a museum pose for a couple hours or a couple days and then go back to it. But as far as from that, that's the only limitation that this figure has. Of course, it doesn't have the same issue with the lower part of the body, which the pants itself isn't that tight at all, which gives a lot more chance to play around. As of course, you can double bend the knees, and you can have in such dynamic poses. But as far as in the upper side, the jacket, again, like I said, you're gonna have to be very careful posing him in dynamic poses. Alright, ladies and gents, as we wrap up this review, I want to share my final thoughts on this figure. Being that Star-Lord played a major impact in the film, Avengers Infinity War, it's amazing that Hot Toys brought to life this character in one 6-scale format. It's a well-detailed figure that you can display and pose in many different forms. Especially with the accessories, you can pretty much craft moments and scenes from the film. While being that I barely own this figure, having it pose in dynamic poses for such a long period of time can increase the chances of creases. However, pose with precaution. But regardless of that, the figure is a must-have for those who enjoy this character. And if you're looking to purchase this figure, I left a link in the description box below for you to check out. Now, what are your thoughts on this figure? Do you plan to pick this up? Or, if you do own him, would you recommend this as well? I would love to hear your opinion. Also, if you enjoy this review, please click the like button, share, and subscribe for more Marvel content. And I guarantee you, the next upcoming video will put a smile on your face. Hint, hint. Till then, I'll see you all on the next video.